You probably know someone who keeps failing, again and again. Different jobs, different relationships, different places, but the same result. It's not bad luck. It's not the system. It's not even other people. It's them. The brutal truth. There are certain types of people who are doomed to fail at life forever, no matter how hard they try. The scary part? You might be one of them. Stick around, because the fifth type is the most dangerous and the hardest to escape. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What if I told you that millions are trapped in exactly this invisible fate? And worse, they don't even know it. Let's break down the 5 psychological archetypes of people who are programmed to self-destruct, not by bad luck, but by who they choose to be again and again. And if you recognize even one of these traits in yourself, you're not alone. But you better wake up, because life doesn't wait for those who sleep. Type 1. The blame shifter. They never say the words, "It was my fault." The blame shifter is the kind of person who, when life punches them in the face, turns around and accuses the mirror. They are experts at constructing entire narratives where they are the innocent victim and the world is the aggressor. Their story is always the same. Someone else screwed them over. When they fail a class, the teacher was unfair. When they lose a job, the boss was jealous. When a relationship ends, it's because their partner was toxic or abuser. Nothing is ever their fault. Ever. They live in a mental fortress built out of denial, projection, and finger-pointing. Why does this matter? Because growth begins where blame ends. And the blame shifter has no incentive to grow. In their mind, there's nothing to change, because they're never wrong. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Carl Jung. But they never look inward. They live in perpetual resistance to the idea that they might be contributing to their own suffering. But it's a psychological trap. Blame feels good. It gives a surge of righteous indignation. It lets them off the hook, but it also chains them to a loop of failure. It erases their agency. If the world is to blame, then the world must change. And good luck with that. This isn't just a personality quirk. It's a psychological defense mechanism rooted in ego fragility. They protect a fragile self-image by deflecting anything that might threaten it. Blame becomes armor, but also a prison. So, why they fail at life? Because success is built on responsibility. The most successful people in the world are those who say, "I messed up, I need to learn." The blame shifter can't say those words, so they don't evolve. They repeat mistakes. They re-enter the same toxic relationships. They bounce from job to job, convinced every boss is an idiot. They surround themselves with enablers who validate their stories or isolate entirely to avoid accountability. Their life is a slow-motion collapse, not dramatic, not explosive, just a long, bitter unraveling of opportunities missed and lessons unlearned. One day, Epictetus said, "Man is not disturbed by things, but by the view he takes of them." Want real-life examples? You probably know someone like this. That friend who still talks about their ex from 3 years ago. Every time they mention them, it's with venom. "She ruined me. He manipulated me." They were a narcissist, never once considering what they allowed, what patterns they repeated, what red flags they ignored. To them, they're just unlucky. But to the outside world, they're stuck. Or that coworker who's been through 5 jobs in 2 years. Every time there's a new villain, micromanaging boss, backstabbing coworker, unfair system. Same script, different cast. You listen, you nod. But in your head, you're thinking, maybe the problem is you. They are only making their situation worse. They surround themselves with echo chambers, friends who reinforce their narrative, social media posts that confirm their victimhood, self-help videos that validate their wounds without ever confronting them. They love videos titled, "How to Spot a Narcissist," but never search, "How to Stop Being Codependent." They seek comfort, not truth. Underneath it all is fear. Fear of not being good enough. Fear that if they take responsibility, it will shatter their already fragile identity. So instead, they live in denial. And denial is expensive. It costs them growth, peace, relationships, careers. And here's the twist. Even when they start to see the pattern, they may blame themselves in a toxic way. "I'm just cursed. I'm a mess. I'm broken." But that's still not ownership. That's just another disguise for self-pity. True ownership says, "I did this. I can change this." If you've made it this far, pause. Think about your own life. Is there an area where you're blaming others? Where you haven't truly looked in the mirror? Blame is seductive, but ownership is powerful. The blame shifter chooses comfort over growth, victimhood over evolution. And in doing so, they doom themselves to a life of repetition, of pain without progress. And the harsh truth is, no one is coming to save them. Until they take responsibility, they are exactly where they've chosen to be. Type 2. The chronic people pleaser. There's a tragedy in trying to be loved by everyone. The people pleaser isn't just nice. They're addicted to approval. They say yes when they mean no. They sacrifice their time, their goals, and their identity just to avoid conflict. On the surface, they look like the sweetest soul in the room. But beneath that is fear. A deep fear of rejection. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. And he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that's exactly what the people pleaser never does. Why they fail? Because a life lived for others, out of fear, not love, is not a life at all. People pleasers suppress their voice for so long that they eventually forget how it sounds. They enter toxic relationships, let others exploit their kindness, and burn themselves out trying to be what others want. But here's the bitter truth. The more they try to please everyone, the less anyone respects them. Respect isn't given to those who are agreeable. It's given to those who set boundaries. Real-life example. You probably know someone like this. Maybe you are someone like this. Picture Sarah, always saying yes. She's exhausted, but when her coworker asks for just one more little favor, she forces a smile. She does her friend's work, cancels her own plans, then cries in the bathroom because she's overwhelmed. When she tries to set a boundary, they say, "You've changed." She didn't change. She just finally remembered she matters too. This is a subtle manipulation wrapped in kindness. One of the darkest parts of the people-pleaser persona is how self-sabotaging it is. They aren't just being nice. They're manipulating, unconsciously, hoping that if they're nice enough, people will love them back. But real connection doesn't work that way. People fall in love with authenticity, not submission. You can't truly connect with others while wearing a mask. And yet, people pleasers wear theirs every single day. Where does this come from? Childhood, most often. When love was conditional, when being good meant survival. They learned, be quiet, smile, behave, or lose love. And now, as adults, that wound hasn't healed. It just evolved. They say things like, "I don't want to bother anyone. It's okay, really. I can handle it. I just want everyone to be happy." But what they're really saying is, "Please don't leave me. Please see me. Please give me value." Eventually, the chronic people-pleaser snaps. Years of repressed needs and fake smiles boil over into a quiet rage. They ghost people. They disappear. They finally say no. But it's not empowered. It's messy. because they waited too long. Healthy boundaries are like fences. They protect your garden. But when you never build them, people trample everything you've grown. Can you relate? Ask yourself, have you ever said yes while screaming no inside? Do you fear that being honest will make people dislike you? Do you ever feel invisible, even when you're surrounded by people? That's the cost of being a chronic people pleaser. And it's a high price to pay for approval that never truly satisfies. What to do about it? Not a full solution, not yet, but a seed. Start by disappointing one person per day. That's right. Let someone down. Say no. Don't explain it. Feel the discomfort and do it anyway. Because freedom begins where people-pleasing ends. And remember this: you are not alive to make others comfortable. You are alive to live your truth. Type 3. The Comfort Addict. Imagine a man sitting in a dimly lit room. The lights are off. The blinds are closed. The same pizza box has been on the table for 3 days. He scrolls. He watches. He numbs. That's the Comfort Addict. This is the person who mistakes safety for peace, who thinks feeling okay is the same as thriving. They avoid pain at all costs, even when pain is the price of progress. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "He who has something to live for can endure almost anything." The Comfort Addict, he has no why, only how. Why they fail? Because growth lives outside of comfort. Comfort feels good short-term, but long-term, it rots the soul. You stop taking risks. You stop pushing limits. You avoid everything that stings, which means you avoid everything that matters. They stay in the job they hate. They stay in the city they resent. They scroll instead of sweat. They dream, but never move. And eventually, comfort turns into a coffin. Real-life example. Let's talk about Mark. Mark graduated 10 years ago. He told everyone he'd start a business. He even printed cards, CEO of my future empire. But that was 2014. Now he works remote tech support. He wakes up at 10:30, eats cereal, plays Warzone, watches TikTok, scares himself with big plans, but does nothing. He's not a bad person. He's not lazy. He's just addicted to the feeling of not uncomfortable. They produce the illusion of safety. Comfort addicts often tell themselves stories. I'll do it later. I'm not ready yet. It's not the right time. But the truth is simpler. They're scared. Scared of judgment. Scared of failure. Scared that if they actually try, they might learn who they really are. So they stay where it's warm and numb, even if it kills them slowly. Evolution didn't build us for ease. Biologically, humans are made for stress. We hunted. We starved. We endured storms and war and wilderness. Now, we melt down when the Wi-Fi drops. Man is not made for repose. Arthur Schopenhauer. But today's comfort addict lives in a dopamine cage. Fast food, porn, TikTok loops, Netflix autoplay. Every second is curated for ease. Every discomfort is avoided. And so the muscle, mental, emotional, physical, atrophies. Ever find yourself watching content on how to change your life while not changing it? Ever catch yourself fantasizing about someday for the 5th year in a row? Ever realize your best ideas come when you're slightly uncomfortable, in a cold shower, during a hard run, when you're scared but moving? That's because comfort is not clarity, it's sedation. Comfort is like a warm bath, nice at first, soothing, familiar. But if you stay too long, you fall asleep, and you drown. What to do about it? If you recognized yourself in this, good. It means you're waking up. Now the question is simple: to take steps, to take uncomfortable steps. For someone who has spent their whole life looking for comfort, this is the most difficult thing. But the most difficult thing is to start. A difficult start, on the one hand, drives you into a pit of no return. On the other hand, if you start, then the rest will be easier. The life you want will cost you the life that's too comfortable, and no one ever built greatness from the couch. Type 4, the entitled. They walk through life as if the world owes them something: respect, success, comfort, all without effort. This isn't ambition. This is expectation without exertion. They don't chase value. They demand rewards simply for existing. This type of person is poison in any system that values merit. They enter relationships expecting unconditional admiration. They take jobs and expect instant promotions. They speak more than they listen, demand more than they give, and complain when life dares to ignore their imaginary crown. Let's be clear. Feeling entitled isn't just arrogance. It's a fatal belief system. Because if you already believe you deserve everything, you never feel the need to earn anything. That means no growth, no humility, no discipline, just a cycle of disappointment and blame. Why they fail? Because the real world doesn't operate on your feelings. It operates on results. And those who wait to be handed greatness die waiting. Schopenhauer described it in the following words: "The man who thinks the universe owes him happiness is blind to the fact that happiness is something built, not delivered." Entitlement is a sedative. It feels powerful because it tells you you're special. But that very lie steals your drive. You become addicted to the fantasy that others will eventually see your worth without you having to prove it. Let's put this into reality. You've probably seen this person in school, the student who thought they deserved an A because they showed up. Or at work, the coworker who thinks they should be promoted because they've been here for years, despite doing the bare minimum. Relationships? Don't even get started. The entitled partner thinks love means never being challenged. They think loyalty means submission. And when their partner pushes back or grows tired, they call them toxic abuser. Many entitled people were raised being told they're special without having to do anything special. Over time, that turns into a rigid self-image, fragile, defensive, unable to handle criticism. They don't see success as something built. They see it as something delayed. Jung would argue that entitlement is the ego defending against the terrifying idea that we are not inherently important, that value must be earned. It's easier to believe the world is unfair than to accept that you're not trying hard enough. This mindset gets reinforced in modern culture. Instant gratification, participation trophies, social media likes turning into currency. It's easy to build a life where you feel important without doing anything important. But then the wall hits: rejection, failure, reality. And when it does, the entitled person doesn't adapt. They rage, they blame, they collapse. Here's the most dangerous part. Entitled people often sound confident, charismatic, convincing. They know how to use words like self-worth and boundaries to mask their laziness. They post about knowing their value while avoiding any feedback that might challenge it. Ask yourself, do you know someone who always expects more than they give? Someone who's offended by basic expectations? Someone who calls effort exploitation and calls mediocrity self-care? Or worse, is that someone you? For example, let's take Brian. Brian is 28. He's job-hopped for years, but in every workplace he's been undervalued. At least that's what he says. His resume is thin, his attitude is heavy. Every boss was abusive. Every colleague was jealous. Every girlfriend was unsupportive. Brian scrolls Instagram for hours, liking motivational quotes. He tweets about knowing your worth and cutting off negativity. But he hasn't done a hard thing in years. He hasn't followed through on a single goal. Brian isn't unlucky. Brian is entitled. And until he kills that lie, his life will keep killing his dreams. Bottom line, you're not owed a damn thing. not love, not success, not happiness. All of it is earned through pain, persistence, and humility. And until you accept that, you'll keep waiting for a life that's never coming. Type 5, the Self Sabotur. This is the type I was talking about at the beginning, and it is particularly dangerous, very common, and very well disguised. Often, people don't even see this type in themselves. There's a silent killer lurking inside countless people, not drugs, not failure, not poverty, but their own hand on the trigger, self-sabotage. The self-saboteur is the person who, just when things are about to go right, finds a way to blow it all up. They start a new job and ghost on the second week. They get into a relationship and immediately pick fights. They get an opportunity and suddenly feel not ready or not good enough. It's not that they're cursed. It's that they're addicted to the chaos they create. Why they fail? Because they never allow themselves to win. Success demands stability, and stability terrifies the self-saboteur. They've lived so long with internal discomfort that peace feels foreign, unsafe. So when life offers them peace, they create a storm. When someone offers them love, they stir up drama. When they get close to success, they pull the plug. It's not because they don't want better. It's because deep down, they don't believe they deserve better. Think about the friend who always has a new plan, a new business idea, a new gym schedule. They start strong. They post about it. They even get you excited. Then, silence, excuses, ghosting, and the same cycle starts all over again. Self-sabotage often disguises itself as procrastination, perfectionism, or bad luck. But it's deeper than that. It's fear of growth, fear of being seen, fear of being judged, fear of failing, or worse, succeeding and having to live up to that new standard. Psychologist Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is the fate of the self-saboteur. They keep sabotaging because they don't recognize the unconscious patterns ruling them. Childhood trauma, learned helplessness, fear of rejection, conditioning from environments that punished success or mocked ambition. The root is buried deep, and it rots everything they try to build. Let's go darker. Imagine someone who grew up in a household where every time they achieved something, a parent belittled them. "Don't think you're special," or "You're not better than anyone else." That person learns to dim their light, to fail preemptively, so they don't get punished for shining. Now fast forward to adulthood. Every time a good thing happens, their inner voice whispers, "This won't last. You're not good enough. You always mess things up." And you know what? They listen. How do you spot a self-saboteur? They're almost successful at everything. They leave before they can be left. They joke about being a mess, but never change. They wear failure like a badge of honor. Here's the real tragedy. Many of them are highly capable, intelligent, talented, even admired. But they're trapped in a loop of self-destruction. And they mask it with sarcasm, with dark humor, with a devil-may-care attitude that looks cool on the outside. But inside, they're crumbling. Why does this matter? Because you might be this person. You might have thrown away relationships, opportunities, your own progress, not because you lacked the tools, but because you couldn't face your own potential. That's the dark paradox, fearing success more than failure. The self-saboteur doesn't need more talent, more luck, or more motivation. They need self-compassion. They need to break the loop. And it starts by asking the hard question: what would my life look like if I actually stopped screwing it up? If that question hits too hard, you're probably the one who needed to hear it most. Next, we'll explore how all 5 of these types form a web, a trap many people never escape. But if you've recognized even one of them in yourself, then you've already taken the first step out. In next videos, we'll explore how all 5 of these types form a web, a trap many people never escape. So, don't forget to subscribe. But if you've recognized even one of them in yourself, then you've already taken the first step out. So we've just broken down these 5 types. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment and tell us. Did you recognize someone you know? Or maybe, did you recognize yourself? Be real. Share your story. Raw. Unfiltered. Not for likes, not for validation, but because someone out there might need to know they're not alone. And who knows? Your words might be the thing that hits home for them. That sick feeling in your gut right now? Don't ignore it. Blame shifters stay trapped in stories they've written about how the world is unfair. People pleasers live in fear of rejection, choosing comfort over authenticity. Comfort addicts die in soft prisons with smiling faces. The entitled rot in their imagined royalty. And the self-saboteurs? They hold the keys to the castle, but set fire to the gates before ever walking through. They all have one thing in common. They are loyal to their limitations. But here's the twist. If you've seen a piece of yourself in any of these types, that doesn't mean you're doomed. In fact, the fact that you're still here, still watching, still listening, that might just mean you're the rare one. The one with a sliver of rebellion left. The one with just enough courage to say, that won't be me. You see, most people stop here. They nod, they agree, but they don't change. Because change hurts. Change is a small death of who you were. So let me ask you something dangerous. Which one were you? Which one are you still clinging to? And more importantly, are you ready to let it die? You don't need a seminar. You don't need a life coach. You don't need a spiritual awakening. You need to decide. That's it. People waste years looking for the right moment, the right plan, the right energy, instead of doing the one thing that matters, letting go of the identity that's been quietly killing them. If you're still here, you're not average. Average people clicked away 5 minutes ago. You stayed. You listened. You saw yourself. Now the question is, will you bury this video under another dopamine scroll, or will you burn it into your brain as the moment you stopped being who you were taught to be? Let me know in the comments if this hit you. If it didn't, maybe you're not ready yet. But if it did, you already know what to do. Subscribe, hit the bell, and don't disappear, because this is just the beginning.